Welcome to HB Reddit Stories. Today we will see stories of r/am I the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my family no more to monthly family dinners? Ever since my dad was a kid, our family has done monthly family dinners, nicer ones than your average family dinner. It's something our family did when my siblings and I were kids too. We'd have grandparents over and we'd all have a nicer dinner together. When my siblings and I grew up, we still did it, only instead of what happened before, where branches broke off over time and did their own, they decided we should include partners/spouses and our kids as a whole in one. By the time I was 19, the family had decided they would take turns hosting each month to lessen the burden. My wife was excited to be a part of them at first. We started during our relationship. I did the cooking to start and then she took over after a while because she wanted to. My family had seemingly got along with my wife before this point, but they were overly harsh of her cooking, with the exception of my two younger siblings. She tried to make them happy, but no dice. I told them they could be kinder. They said she should cook better or cook different things. My wife didn't make anything they don't eat. But nothing was right. She grew frustrated and I grew suspicious. So we hosted a couple of months ago and I told my wife we were going to pretend I did the cooking. Just to see. She told me she felt like they just weren't fond of her food. I pointed out nobody had the same amount of complaints as them, and they even criticized the steak and potatoes they all seemed to go crazy for. She went along with the plan, and when my family thought I'd cooked it, they loved it. Said it was so good my wife had decided to let a real talent take over. That it was so nice to have something a little different, curry, and all this very lovely stuff. My younger brother and sister weren't fooled. But they enjoyed watching the rest of the family dig a hole. When the rest of my family heard it was my wife's food and not mine, they tried so hard to backtrack on all the nice stuff. The rest of the dinner went in tense silence and my wife's eyes were opened. I told her I was done with these dinners and she was my priority. She felt a little bad. I told her we could have dinners with my younger brother and sister sometimes. It's less stress anyway. When we didn't show up to last month's dinner or this one, my parents and siblings started asking questions. I told them each time we weren't going again, but missing two made it sink in. They told me we need to be there. I said never again. My wife doesn't deserve their disrespect. I told them they ruined what they wanted by being a-holes to her. They said I was overreacting, making very relationship-harming choices, and treating them badly for simply having issues with my wife's food. They also said to think of future kids and how they'll miss out. Some of it got to my wife a little, which I have tried to reassure her about. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Not the a-hole. It's pretty clear the issue isn't her food. It's her. For whatever reason they don't seem to like her. Good for you for standing up to them. OP replies. Having that confirmed sucked badly. But I wasn't going to pretend it was okay to treat her this way either. They wouldn't come right out and say it either. They tried to hide behind the food. It sounds like your family dislikes your wife, not the cooking. I completely understand why you stopped attending the dinners, not the a-hole. But you really need to have a conversation with your family on why they are mean to your wife. It is unlikely this behavior will change just because she stopped cooking. They will start criticizing something else about her. Also, no, you do not want your future children surrounded by people who criticize their mom for no reason. You don't want them thinking it is okay for themselves to act like this, or for future partners to treat your children like this. You mentioned your wife made curry. Is she Indian? Is your family perhaps racist? Not the a-hole, obviously. How terrible for you and for your wife. OP replies. Nope. She's as white as the rest of us. But she loves cooking all kinds of foods. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she isn't the type of person I want my daughters to look up to? My sister and I are complete opposite. My sister doesn't have many accomplishments, and the last thing I remember her achieving is graduating high school. At 20 she dropped out of college because she was pregnant. She moved in with the father and for 10 years they were a family. All that time she didn't had a job even when her son started school. Those two never married and he left her about 2 years ago. She is now pregnant again, new dad isn't involved, works at fast food and barely scraps by. She is constantly asking for money. She actually wanted to move in with me and my kids. My wife travels a lot. I have 2 daughters and my sister told me she wanted to be closer. She wanted to move into my home, that it would be good for the girls to have a woman they could look up to. She never liked that my wife travels. This isn't the first time she has brought it up and I have turned her down politely many times. My sister brought it up again last night. I told her no. This resulted in a heated conversation with her asking why. I decided to be honest and I told her that she isn't the type of women I want my kids to look up to. I also listed the reasons above. She called me a jerk. The family is now on my butt about this, saying I was heartless to tell her that. They also want me to apologize. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Ultimately not the a-hole. You could be polite but still firm. If she's insisting on moving in, something must be going on for her. Opie Replezi truly wish she would have dropped in the first few times I turned her down. Not the a-hole. Surprised no one's acknowledging that she said your kids need someone to look up to when your wife is in the picture. She can't disrespect your wife and expect for her feelings to be coddled. You've said no before and she was pushing for a response. People need to be responsible for their life decisions, and you shouldn't be on the hook to house her and take care of her kids. I'm going to go with not the a-hole. Your sister keeps badgering you to let her, and her 2 children, I presume, move in with you. Asking once, a bit presumptuous, but okay. Asking repeatedly, is not okay. She has also increased her pressure tactics on you by arguing with you about it, by criticizing your wife and implying your wife is not a good mother. Further, she has now changed her tactics to something totally inappropriate, which is asking you why you won't allow her to move in with you, as if you are required to allow her to move in unless you provide her with a good enough reason why not. In my experience, this is a common tactic with manipulative people. They don't want to know why, so they can understand or feel better about not getting what they want. They want to know why, so they can have a tool to better manipulate you with. It's the same tactic as the people to whom you say, no, you can't stay in my house for a month while you explore the city, and they ask why. When you say, because I work from home and I need that space for my office, they just tell you, oh, it's no problem, you can just work in your living room. I promise I will be very quiet in the mornings and won't disturb you. Of course they won't, but that's not the point. The point is that by asking the question they are getting more tools to manipulate you. She is using manipulation tactics to bully you into giving her what she wants. The outcome where you said something she could label offensive, and thereby get other family to gang up on you, is exactly the outcome she was trying to achieve. Because now she has the entire family on her side and ostracizing you over not giving in to her unreasonable demands. She has flipped the script and now you are the bad guy. Don't be fooled. But also don't give in to her manipulation by allowing her to goad you into becoming the bad guy. Pick your hardline answer and when she tries to goad you, just go with the same answer. No, you won't be able to move into my house. Why? Because that's our decision, that's why. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad that he's effectively made me homeless? I, 22M, moved out of my dad's house around 1.5 years ago. The deal he made with me was that I could always come back home if I was struggling too much financially. I'm a university student and also working full-time. My lease ends on September 1st and since around July, he and I have been under agreement that I can move back in with him starting in September. Fast forward to today. He texts me out of the blue and says that his current girlfriend isn't okay with me living there and that I'll need to figure something else out. Her reasoning was that she didn't want to have to hear me in the basement late at night since I get off work super late. I would have been quiet. The most noise would have been the alarm going off for 5 seconds when I opened the door. He told me this 2 weeks before my lease is up. I tried to make a case for myself and told my father that we've been in agreement for months that I could move back in, but he's still refusing. I told him he just effectively made me homeless, and that if I had known sooner that I couldn't move back in, I would have looked for somewhere else. He told me I needed to grow up and handle this like an adult, to figure out my own problems. As it stands, most landlords aren't even renting out for September 1st at this point. I'll have to find a place for October 1st. Am I the a-hole? Little update, I guess. I asked around at work and a few coworkers said they could use an extra roommate to help with the rent. My grandparents also said yes to me staying with them, but live super far away from my school and work. Right now these are my two best options. Top comments. Not the a-hole. It's sad that he's not even willing to house you temporarily to give you time to find another option, given that he'd made a commitment to you. He's choosing his GF's preferences over your basic needs, and justifying it by saying, well, you're an adult, figure it out. Adult or not, you had an agreement and therefore had not made other arrangements, and it's totally inappropriate for him to withdraw that at this point. OP replies. Exactly. If he had told me by the beginning of this month that I couldn't move back in, I would have had more than enough time to figure something out. Not the a-hole. He is telling you to grow up, but can't seem to prioritize his own responsibilities here. Unfortunately, it doesn't sound like you have a lot of choice in the matter. All you can do is never, ever, forget this decision he made. This is your excuse to never make a deal/agreement with him again. It's your chance to dodge the next 10,000 favors he asks of you. This is going to be all the proof you need to show that you owe him nothing from here on out. Not the a-hole. That really doesn't leave you much time at all to find a place, if there is availability. There's a reason that 30 days is the standard. Especially, if you work full-time. And it probably messes up your finances as well. OP replies. It screwed me, to be honest. I work full-time, but even a full-time job isn't enough to sustain oneself nowadays. Every apartment in my city costs at least $1,300 and my paychecks are usually just under $1,100. The only apartments I can afford have a reputation for bedbugs, roaches, and rats. Next story. Am I the a-hole for laughing at my parents for an impossible mix-up? We was staying with my parents for 2 weeks and my daughter Lizzie is a vegetarian. We bought some impossible beef and was going to use it for a later date. My whole family gives Lizzie a hard time for being vegetarian, but she has been one for almost 10 years from 6 to 16. I have gotten all kinds of hell around the holidays because of things Lizzie wouldn't eat because it had chicken broth or bacon fat in it. I went to the freezer on day to thaw Lizzie meat for burgers that night. It was gone. My mom refused to get cataract surgery and somehow made the whole family Lizzie's gross fake meat, and not one person noticed. It was funny and I told my daughter and my family and laughed at them. My dad got extremely angry at us because he always talks crap about grilling Lizzie's burgers and calls them gross. There was 2 meals that week, it could have been a meatloaf or taco meat and no one noticed. My dad is calling me an a-hole, saying how could we be so careless and someone could have gotten sick from eating the fake meat, but it says impossible in large letters on the packaging, so it was my mom's mistake and no one at the time said the meal tasted any different, not even my picky but father, so how judgmental they are of Lizzie. Then dad refused to have the fake meat in the home because of that and instead Lizzie ate a mushroom burger, but I told him I think he's overreacting to this, but he told me I could stay in a hotel because I played a mean trick on everyone. He was grumpy with both Lizzie and I for the rest of the vacation. Top comments. Not the a-hole. Your family is though, aside from Lizzie. I'm vegetarian, but luckily my family is supportive. Well, mostly. Mom and my younger bro are. My older bro is a jerk anyway. My dad is coming for a visit and I know it will be an issue for him. Regardless, there is nothing wrong with impossible meat. Your dad didn't need to be grumpy to you and your daughter, like what the F? Sounds like my dad, honestly. Can laugh and make jokes and be hurtful to others, but don't you dare make a joke when he's the butt. Ugh. Grown men need to stop being such babies. I hope your vacation with Lizzie wasn't too terribly ruined. Not the a-hole, I am a carnivore, and I find this hilarious. Because they effed up, they're blaming you. Honestly, it serves them right for not paying attention to what was written on the box. Impossible or beyond meat when cooked into strong flavored dishes like taco meat, chili, and spaghetti sauce are almost impossible to tell the difference. OP replies. Or the massive amount of tomatoes paste my mom puts in meatloaf. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I hate her fridgescaping? Recently my wife has taken to fridgescaping. I guess it's a recent trend because I'd never heard about it before this. She started decorating our fridge and it was really getting on my nerves. For example, she put flowers in the fridge, in vases, in front of food, so you have to move things just to get to the food. She put all our food in fancy baskets, jars, and similar things. I know it sounds absurd, but if you just search up fridgescaping, you'll see what I'm talking about. I didn't care at first because I don't have to use the fridge much anyways, I don't cook a lot. But she's getting too meticulous with it and adding too much decor. It's made the fridge very uninviting for me. She gets upset when I get something from the fridge and don't put things back perfectly. She keeps taking it as a personal slight and acts like I've done something to deliberately hurt her, when I haven't. I just find it unnecessary to maintain such an organized fridge. Before she started this, it would take me 30 seconds to grab something quick from the fridge, whereas now it's a whole ordeal. Last weekend she confronted me after I grabbed some leftovers from the fridge and left it in disarray, according to her. I explained how I find the hobby stupid and she can decorate other things, it doesn't have to be the fridge. It gets in the way when I want to quickly eat. When I come home from work hungry and tired and want to grab a quick bite, it's frustrating. I also talked to my son about it, and he finds it annoying, which I told her. She didn't argue back after that, and she's removed all of the decorations from the fridge, which I have to admit has been relieving. But she's also been acting very distant towards me and just hasn't been herself, and has been weird intimacy-wise. Am I the a-hole for this? Top comments. Not the a-hole. I mean, was it nice to call something she put time and effort into stupid? Probably not. My move would have been to call it impractical, especially as it's a communally used appliance and not fully in her control. Having a fridge that is practical to use is important, and chances are, most of these content creators don't actually leave their fridgescaped, as it's just not functional. Maybe you can apologize for the stupid comment and then ask her if there's somewhere else in the home she'd like to decorate solely to her liking. Edit. This is more toward other commenters rather than OP, but I do think people need to consider how rude it is to call things other people might find a spark of joy or fun in stupid or dumb. All too often people, women in particular, are called stupid for liking basically anything. Taylor Swift is dumb, the Barbie movie was dumb, Bravo shows are dumb, Stanley Cups are dumb, Starbucks is a waste, and so on and so forth. Would I decorate the interior of my fridge? Probably not. But if it was something OP's wife found a bit of fun in, then who cares? It literally harms no one. And OP's wife lives in a house with two guys who probably dominate a lot of the household with their wants and interests. No a-hole here. It's reasonable to not want too much decor in the fridge, or to not be scolded if you don't put things back perfectly. But you did totally belittle something that brought your wife joy and made her feel creative. Not surprised she's been distant. Most people don't like it when you crap on their interests, and most people like it even less when it's a spouse. I'm nicer to my friends about their interests that I don't like than you are to your literal wife. Person shrugging, not understanding that it might make her distant is completely clueless of you, to be honest. Edit. Apparently if you tell people to be nice to their partners, they get really triggered. You know, most of these "Am I the a-hole" posts come down to communication. It's hardly ever the situation. You're not the a-hole for not wanting your fridge scaped. But you're the a-hole for how you talk to people. There's so many better ways you could have approached it, and you approached it out of anger and annoyance and belittled your wife and made her feel it was you and your son against her. To her this was a fun little hobby that felt fulfilling to her, and you essentially told her that the thing that brought her happiness is stupid and annoying and to stop. You could have said it looks wonderful, but it's a bit inconvenient, and maybe she could have put her efforts somewhere else like the laundry room, because, as much as you enjoy the aesthetic, the fridge didn't seem the best place to showcase her efforts. Be nice to people you love. Why does that seem so hard? Why don't people do that more often? And the audacity to wonder why she doesn't want to be intimate afterwards. I only shat all over her hobby. Why is she not taking all of her clothes off? Be nice to your wife. Apologize and say it the right way, and there's always a right and wrong way to communicate with someone you love. Right now, you are the a-hole. Not because of the situation, but because you treat your wife like she's less. Be better. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel HB Reddit Stories.